Shadows of a forgotten species. The Galactic Concordat had ruled unchallenged for 8 centuries. 12 species, bound by ancient treaties and mutual interests, governed the spiral arms with a blend of diplomacy and calculated force. Their technologically advanced fleets patrolled trade routes while their emissaries negotiated resource rights among the younger species. It was an age of relative stability, the natural order of things. Admiral Xoreth of the Vesperi Defense Force gazed out at the holographic display of the Concordat's domain, his compound eyes reflecting the blue glow of countless stars. His chitinous fingers traced the outer boundary of their territory, lingering on a particular sector designated Zone 81. "There it is again," he muttered, his mandibles clicking with irritation. Third anomalous reading this cycle. His second in command, Commander Thrill, approached with practiced caution. "The technicians believe it's merely stellar interference, Admiral. Zone 81 has always been problematic for our sensors." Xoreth's antennae twitched. Zone 81 was once called the Sol Expanse. Have you ever wondered why the oldest records mark it as forbidden territory? Thrill's wings rustled uncomfortably. Ancient superstitions, something about a quarantine after the Collapse Wars. Nothing worth investigating. "And yet," Xoreth continued, "our deep space relays have detected energy signatures unlike anything in our databases. Moving patterns, deliberate patterns." The command center fell silent as the holographic display shifted, zooming in on Zone 81. The anomalous readings appeared as faint red pulses, seemingly random at first glance, but with an underlying rhythm that was impossible to ignore. "Dispatch a reconnaissance vessel," Xoreth ordered. "Minimal crew, stealth protocols. I want to know what's out there." 3 cycles later, the reconnaissance ship Twilight Observer entered the outer boundary of Zone 81. Captain Miravel, a Centaurian known for her methodical approach to exploration, maintained strict communications protocol as they ventured deeper into the Forbidden Zone. "Sensor sweep complete," reported her navigation officer. "Still nothing but those strange energy pulses." "Wait." The officer's voice faltered. "New contact. Massive signature at bearing 047. Vel leaned forward, her silver-scaled skin reflecting the emergency lights that had suddenly activated. "Classification: unknown. It's not broadcasting any recognition codes. Size estimate puts it at approximately 3 kilometers in length. Definitely artificial." "Impossible," Vel whispered. "Nothing that large could have." The ship shuddered violently. Warning alerts cascaded across every console as systems began shutting down in sequence. "We're being scanned," the tactical officer shouted. "Some kind of targeted electromagnetic pulse." "Evasive maneuvers," Vel ordered, but it was too late. The ship's engines sputtered and died, leaving them drifting helplessly in space. On the main view screen, a massive vessel emerged from the darkness. Its design was unlike anything in Concordat records, sleek and predatory, with strange angular protrusions that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. No visible weapons, yet the sense of latent power was unmistakable. "Open a channel," Vel commanded, fighting to keep her voice steady. All frequencies, all languages in the database. For several tense moments, there was nothing. Then a voice responded, clear, measured, and speaking in perfect Concordat standard. "Twilight Observer of the Galactic Concordat, you have entered restricted space. State your purpose." Vel swallowed hard. "This is Captain Miravel. We are on a peaceful reconnaissance mission. Identify yourself." A pause then. "We are the vanguard of the Terran Ascendancy. You may call me Admiral Chen of the Reclamation Fleet." The word sent a chill through the command deck. Terra, Earth, humanity. Names from ancient history lessons, stories of a species that had vanished during the Collapse Wars, a civilization presumed extinct. "That's not possible," Vel managed. "Humanity has been gone for centuries." "Not gone, Captain. Withdrawn. There is a difference." The voice remained eerily calm. Your vessel will now be escorted to our perimeter station for debriefing. Do not attempt to transmit to your command. The consequences would be regrettable." Before Vel could respond, the Twilight Observer lurched forward, caught in some invisible tractor field. Through the view screen, she watched as more massive ships materialized from the darkness, surrounding them completely. The signal from the Twilight Observer ceased abruptly. At Concordat headquarters, Admiral Xoreth ordered an immediate emergency session of the High Council. Representatives from all 12 member species gathered in the Great Chamber, their faces etched with concern. "We have lost contact with our reconnaissance vessel," Xoreth announced gravely, but not before receiving this. The holographic display activated, showing a single image transmitted from the Twilight Observer's final broadcast. The massive unknown vessel, now clearly visible. Along its hull, illuminated in brilliant white against the black metal, was a symbol that caused audible gasps throughout the chamber, a stylized Earth, encircled by 13 stars. "Impossible," murmured the Arcturian delegate. "They were destroyed." "We all agreed they were destroyed." "Evidently," Xoreth replied dryly. "They were not." 3 days later, automated defense stations along the Concordat's outer rim began reporting contact with unknown vessels. Not one ship, but hundreds, all massive, all bearing the same insignia. They moved with precision and purpose, ignoring hails and warnings alike. The first direct confrontation occurred at Outpost Sigma 7, a military installation guarding the approach to the Vesperi homeworld. A squadron of Concordat warships moved to intercept 5 of the unknown vessels. "This is Commander Drell of the Concordat Defense Force," broadcast the squadron leader. "Unknown vessels, you are entering protected space. Reduce speed and prepare to be boarded, or we will open fire." The response came not in words but in action. The human ships simply disappeared. One moment they were there on sensors, the next they were gone, leaving the Concordat vessels firing at empty space. Then the real attack began. The human ships reappeared behind the Concordat squadron, impossibly bypassing their defensive line. What followed wasn't a battle but a systematic dismantling. Precision strikes disabled engines and weapon systems without destroying the ships themselves. Within minutes, the entire squadron floated helpless, crews alive but utterly neutralized. A communication channel opened across all frequencies. "Your vessels have been disabled, not destroyed," came a calm human voice. "This demonstration is concluded. Be advised. The Terran Ascendancy has returned to reclaim its place in the galaxy. Resistance is not recommended." News of the encounter spread rapidly across Concordat space. Within days, similar reports came from a dozen different sectors. Always the same pattern: human ships appearing without warning, neutralizing any resistance with surgical precision, then broadcasting the same message before moving on. In the Great Chamber, panic had replaced disbelief. The Arcturian delegate pounded the table with a tentacled appendage. "We must mobilize every ship, every soldier. These humans mean to conquer us all." "With what goal?" countered the Praxian representative. "They haven't occupied a single world, haven't demanded resources or subjugation. They're making a point, not starting a war." "Yet," added Xoreth grimly. "They haven't started a war yet." As debates raged, another transmission arrived, this one directed specifically to the Concordat High Council. The chamber fell silent as a human figure appeared on the central display. He wore a simple dark uniform with minimal insignia, his demeanor calm and measured. "Distinguished representatives of the Galactic Concordat," he began. "I am High Marshal James Way of the Terran Ascendancy. For centuries, you have believed humanity extinct, a footnote in your histories. This was by design. Now, our isolation ends. In 3 standard days, a diplomatic vessel will arrive at your headquarters. Be prepared to discuss the new galactic reality." The transmission ended as abruptly as it had begun, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. The return of humanity was no longer a theory or a threat. It was an established fact. And the galaxy, for the first time in centuries, faced a fundamental shift in its balance of power. The Concordat's vaunted fleets scrambled to defensive positions. Emergency protocols activated across 100 worlds. Ancient weapons, mothballed for generations, were hastily recommissioned. But as the deadline approached, one question dominated all others. What did humanity want? And why, after centuries of absence, had they chosen now to return? The reckoning dawned. The human diplomatic vessel arrived exactly as promised, a sleek craft significantly smaller than the warships that had demonstrated humanity's military capabilities. It docked with the Concordat station with precise efficiency, escorted by a nervous honor guard of mixed species. The human delegation consisted of only 3 individuals: High Marshal James Way, a woman introduced as Dr. Ileana Okafor, and a third figure who caused immediate consternation. Clearly not human, but a member of the Thrani species, extinct for over 4 centuries according to all Concordat records. In the Great Chamber, the Concordat representatives watched with a mixture of fear and fascination as the humans took their places at the diplomatic table. Way's expression remained neutral, betraying nothing. "We appreciate your willingness to meet," he began, his voice carrying effortlessly across the chamber. "It simplifies matters considerably." The Arcturian delegate leaned forward. "You've demonstrated your military capabilities quite effectively, Marshal Way. Now perhaps you could explain why humanity has suddenly reappeared after 8 centuries of absence." Way's lips curved into a slight smile. "Not absence, delegate. Strategic withdrawal. There's an important distinction." He gestured to Dr. Okafor, who activated a holographic display. It showed the galaxy as it had existed 800 years earlier, divided into territorial claims, with Earth and its colonies occupying a relatively small region. "During what you call the Collapse Wars," White continued, "humanity faced extinction, not from natural disaster or inherent weakness, but from a coordinated effort by several advanced species who feared our rapid technological advancement." Murmurs ran through the chamber. Most present were too young to know these events firsthand, but the older delegates shifted uncomfortably. "The attack on Sol was devastating," White continued, his voice hardening. "Earth itself was nearly rendered uninhabitable. But a fraction of our population escaped through experimental fold space technology deemed impossible by our attackers." The hologram shifted, showing a distant region beyond the galaxy's outer rim. "We found refuge in this isolated pocket of space, a place where we could rebuild, recover, and evolve without interference. We decided to remove ourselves from galactic affairs until we were certain we could prevent another attempted genocide." The Vesperi delegate chittered nervously. "That was 8 centuries ago. None here were even alive during these events." "True," Way acknowledged, "but the institutions that sanctioned our destruction live on." The Concordat itself was founded on treaties that explicitly excluded humanity from galactic civilization. Dr. Okafor stepped forward. "We've monitored your development all this time. Your technological progress, your wars, your treaties. We watched as the Thrani were systematically eliminated because they developed quantum communication too quickly. We observed as the Nelvarans were subjugated for accessing forbidden knowledge." The Thrani representative finally spoke, his voice resonating with a strange harmonic quality. "My people were not destroyed. We were rescued by humanity, evacuated to their sanctuary beyond the rim, as were the Nelvarans and others." Shocked silence fell over the chamber. Way continued calmly. "For 800 years, humanity has served as a sanctuary for species targeted by the Concordat's stability protocols. We've built something beyond your understanding. A civilization based not on controlled growth and enforced technological plateaus, but on unlimited cooperative advancement." The hologram changed again, showing truly massive structures orbiting distant stars. Constructs that dwarfed even the largest Concordat installations. "Dyson spheres," Way explained. "Matryoshka brains. Fold space hubs. Technologies your treaties forbid as destabilizing. We've mastered them all, and more. Is this a prelude to war? The Praxian representative asked bluntly. Revenge for ancient wrongs? Wei shook his head. If we wanted war, there would be no conversation. Your fleets have already discovered they cannot oppose us effectively. Then what do you want? Demanded Soreth. An end to the suppression of knowledge, Wei replied simply. The Concordat has maintained stability by deliberately restricting technological progress, keeping vassal species dependent and controllable. This ends now. Dr. Okafor stepped forward again. We're providing every species in Concordat space with unrestricted access to technological databases that your leadership has suppressed for centuries. Medical advances that could have saved billions. Energy solutions that would have eliminated resource wars. Propulsion systems that would have opened the entire galaxy to exploration. Pandemonium erupted in the chamber. Delegates shouted accusations of treason and threats of war, while others sat in stunned silence at the implications. Wei waited for the chaos to subside before speaking again. The suppression of knowledge is the suppression of potential. Humanity will no longer allow it. We don't seek to rule or conquer. We've built our own civilization beyond your borders. But we will ensure that every sentient species has the right to develop without artificial constraints. You cannot simply dismantle a system that has maintained peace for centuries, protested the Arcturian delegate. We already have, Wei replied softly. Your communications networks are currently broadcasting the truth to every world in Concordat space. The knowledge suppression protocols in your central archives have been neutralized. The change is already underway. As if on cue, aides rushed into the chamber, bringing reports of planetary populations accessing restricted information, of protected servers being opened to public scrutiny, of centuries of carefully guarded secrets flowing freely across formerly controlled networks. This is madness, whispered Soreth. You'll destabilize the entire galaxy. No, countered Wei. We're freeing it from stagnation. The Concordat's founding principle was never peace, it was control. Control through deliberate technological inequality. He stood, towering over the table. Humanity offers a choice. The Concordat can evolve, become a true cooperative of equals sharing knowledge and resources, or it can cling to the old ways and watch as its member worlds choose freedom one by one. And if we refuse? Asked the Praxian, voice quivering. Then nothing changes, Wei answered simply. We've already accomplished our goal. The knowledge is free. What happens next is up to each species individually. In the days that followed, the Concordat's carefully maintained order began to fragment. Some worlds embraced the technological liberation, implementing advances that transformed their societies overnight. Others remained loyal to the old system, rejecting what they viewed as dangerous disruption. The human ships remained on the periphery, neither interfering nor withdrawing, simply observing as a new galactic reality took shape. 6 months later, Marshal Wei stood on the observation deck of the flagship Prometheus, watching as representatives from 27 species, some former Concordat members, others from beyond known space, gathered for the first summit of what would become known as the Galactic Commons. Dr. Okafor joined him, her expression thoughtful. Did it unfold as you expected? Wei shook his head. Better in some ways, worse in others. Change is never clean or simple. Was it worth the 8 centuries of waiting, of isolation? Wei turned to look at the gathered delegates, former enemies now cautious allies, species once facing extinction now thriving. Humanity nearly died 800 years ago because we advanced too quickly without understanding the consequences, he said quietly. We needed that time. To learn, to grow, to ensure we wouldn't repeat the mistakes of those who tried to destroy us. He gestured toward the assembled representatives. Now the galaxy has the chance to advance as one, with shared knowledge and shared responsibility. And if they fail? Okafor asked. Wei's expression remained serene. Then humanity will be there to pick up the pieces as we've done before. Not as conquerors, but as guardians of potential. That's the legacy we've chosen. Beyond the observation window, the stars seemed brighter somehow, not because they had changed, but because those who gazed upon them could finally see without limitation, without constraint, the infinite possibilities they had always promised. The age of enforced stability had ended. The age of unbounded growth had begun. And humanity, once nearly erased from galactic memory, now stood as its architect and guardian, not through dominance, but through the most powerful force of all, the free exchange of knowledge.